Hey, thanks for dropping by and checking out this message. These lessons come from our Sunday gatherings at Victory Christian Church in Franklin, Indiana. Our 5th through 8th graders meet at 9 or 10:30 a.m. and our high schoolers meet from 6 to 8 p.m. If you find that this content brings value to your life, then please consider subscribing and hitting that bell so that you can be notified when we upload our next message. Our hope is that this video brings more clarity into your life as to who God is and what He wants for you in light of who Jesus is and what He's done for you. Enjoy and have a great day.
So while you guys are kind of getting set, there's a couple purposes for why we're doing this series this way. So first off, the reason we're going to do this lesson within groups is because, and it'll look a little bit different each week. We won't do it the same way each week, but it'll be something similar. So what I want you guys to understand about why we're doing it this way is that because, first off, hopefully, church is a safe place. It's a safe environment where you have people that you can trust, people that you can depend on, people that you yourself can even maybe be an example to. And hopefully, secondly, you guys can help have a little bit more of a cohesive feel within your small group so that when you come to church with us each week, that you would feel like you got a group of people that have your back. That what happens in small group, and listen, this is really, really important. What happens in your small group, what is said within your small group, should stay within your small group unless given permission. If the person who shares something in small group does not give you permission to share what they've shared outside of small group, then we might have to adjust your group and you might have to be a group of one, because we want this to be a safe place, a safe environment where you guys can actually care for each other and look out for each other and pray for one another. And if you can't do that because you don't feel like you can open up to each other, you don't feel like your secrets can be safe with the people in your group, hopefully this series will help build upon some of that trust and will help us get to a place where you feel like you got a group of people that have your back. And I'm not saying you should be best friends with everybody in your group, but I am saying, hopefully, that some of the fruits of nights like this and of series like this would be that you maybe get another good friend or two out of this experience. So that's kind of why we're doing these series, these sessions within our groups. So, how many of you've ever you've watched a show that you have like a favorite character that you feel like you relate to, or maybe a YouTuber that you watch, or someone you follow on Instagram, and you feel like when you're commenting on their stuff, like it's because you really connect with them. Maybe they said something in their video, or they've done something on their story or whatever, and you watch that and you're like, oh my goodness, like that's how I feel every time I watch a John Christ story. It's like I relate to everything he just said. And I feel like, he and I have this connection because we have the same shared experience. I don't know who that is for you guys, but then I realized, oh wait, he doesn't know who I am. We're not actually friends because he's just, some guy who has like hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and doesn't know who I am. And that's cool, but we still relate a lot. And I feel like if we were like in the same town, then we would be real friends. We would be great friends, right? And I know you guys have people like that you're like, oh man, if I lived near this person, or this person like went to my school or whatever, like I would be friends with them in real life, right? And it kind of begs the question, like, well, what is it about that? What is it about what we see on TV? What is it that we see in the people that we follow that makes us feel like we have this connection with them? What is it that actually fosters a real connection with somebody? And what is that? How do we decide and how do we figure out who my real friends are? Because if I'm going to take a guess, because I've been in high school somewhat recently in the last 10 years, I know the friendships are tough. I know that sometimes friendships get complicated. And I know that sometimes the people you think are your friends aren't really friends to you when you're not around. And I'm sure that you've experienced something like that. And maybe, conversely, you've had people that you thought were not going to be your friend. If you were alone on an island with that person, there's no one else left on earth, you would still not be friends with that person. And that person ends up becoming a really good friend. And so, I know that God works in mysterious ways, and I know that sometimes we just need a little direction. Hopefully, out of today's message, will help start to answer this question. It won't all be answered at once today, but hopefully we'll talk about some stuff that'll help you kind of, first off, figure out who your friends are, but second off, figure out what you can do to have real friends. So this is the first time, the first week of that. I want you to within your small group, I want you to go through a couple questions that I've had your small group leaders have in advance. You're going to go through a few questions, and then in about 5 minutes, we'll direct your attention back up here, and we'll continue. Go. All right. So, who are my real friends? This is a question that's, I think, difficult for all of us to answer. Who are my real friends? And it's difficult to answer because relationships are just difficult. The older you get, the more complicated your friendships and all of your relationships become. Because when you were kids, like, your friendships were really simple. If you think about it, it's like, whenever your parents had friends, like, you would hang out with the kids of your parents' friends. And you were just like naturally friends because your parents put you two together all the time. And things were simpler that way. But the older you got, the more like your interests changed, you got involved in other hobbies, maybe you switched schools, and so your friendships just kind of, they get a little more complicated and a little more chameleon-like. They shift, they change, and they change with you as you grow and you develop. And so some of that's normal, but what that can mean is finding true friendships can be really difficult and really tough sometimes. So knowing who are my real friends is a valid question. Because maybe you got someone, maybe you don't, maybe you have a few people, maybe you don't. But I think if we were honest, finding real friendships, it is not that easy. The people that will stick with you through your good and your bad moments. The people who will have a positive influence on your life. The people who build you up. And I think it's harder to find because maybe it seems, like I said earlier, your friend group is always changing. Maybe you have switched schools, or you switched sports, or you have different classes of people that you used to be really close friends with. You happen to have the same classes as well, and now you don't. And so you feel like you're never around those people anymore. And so maybe the dynamic of your friendships have changed in that way. Or maybe you don't feel like you have real friends because you have really hard to meet standards. Maybe you feel like, you've seen on TV, you've seen like some of the other friends that you have, it seems like all their friends get along really well. They always like hang out together every waking minute outside of school and sports and activities. They're always together and they always hang out, and you feel like, those are the things that real friends do, but I feel like I don't have any friends that are doing those things with me. Maybe you feel like you don't have friends. You're not asking who your real friends are because you're just asking who could be a real friend to me. And that's a very real place. Many people are in that place, and many times we think we're alone in that, and we're not. It's pretty common. Maybe you're not sure where you stand with your friends. It seems like you're left out of text threads, or you never have any say about what you guys want to do together, and maybe you just really don't know where you stand in your friendships. And it leaves you wondering, and it leaves you with a sense of insecurity. Who are my real friends? Who are the people that I would go to when life starts to fall apart, or when I want to celebrate good moments, or when I need to vent about my parents, or whatever it is? Who are those people for you? The struggle is most definitely real when it comes to managing friendships in high school. And if there's one thing we all know, it's that we need good friends. We need good friends. When we don't have good friends, we feel isolated, we feel defeated, we feel depressed, and we feel alone. And nobody likes feeling any of those things. So the struggle is real. But I think the thing that we need to understand, if we're going to have real friends, the first step we have to take is to recognize that all those thoughts and struggles I just talked about just then are all a certain way that we view friendships. And that is we view those relationships and those friendships in ways in the way that they are not meeting your needs. Maybe you have a model inside your head of what it should look like, and they're not meeting that. Or whatever it is, maybe when it comes to your friendship, maybe we're all tending to focus on what we're not getting from the people in our lives rather than what we are getting from the people in our lives. And that's really easy because, as somebody who gets up and speaks in front of people a lot or leads worship a lot, to be honest, there's a lot of really nice people that will come up and compliment, oh, you did such a good job, But then there's always one person or two people that have a criticism to say or whatever. And can you bet which one I think about the most? It's not the positive. I could get 20 compliments about anything, and I'm sure you're that way too. At a choir performance or at a game or whatever, and you get people that compliment you, tell you do a good job, and then maybe there's one person that kind of cuts you down and tells you where you were wrong, and tells you where you kind of sucked. And you remember that comment more. In fact, sometimes that comment keeps you up at night. And so, sometimes when it comes to our friendships, we tend to focus on the things we're not getting, rather than the positive attributes that they do bring to the table. So instead of feeling like we have real friends, maybe sometimes we feel sad and frustrated and lonely because of the way that we're viewing our friendships and how we think they should be. And we have to check that with reality. So what do we do when our friends aren't meeting our expectations? Let's talk about that right now. You guys got a few minutes in your small group to talk through that a little bit, and then we'll come back up here in a few minutes. All right. So, when we look to the Bible, we get some pretty good examples of what good friendships look like. And actually, I think the best example is from Jesus himself. So let me kind of set the scene for you. Jesus is getting ready. They're going into the Last Supper together. And he and his disciples, his closest circle of friends, they're sitting around the table with them. And Jesus is sitting there, and he knows what's about to happen. It's the Last Supper because he knows that after this supper is over, he's going to be arrested. He's going to be taken to the cross. He's going to be beaten, and he's going to be shamed in front of everybody. He's going to be stripped down and nailed to a tree in front of everybody and die an excruciatingly painful death for the sake of everybody else. And knowing what he was about to go through, he could have thought a ton of things about his disciples. He could have thought, I wonder what they're going to do, what's going to happen when I get arrested. Are they going to stick by me? Are they going to flee? Are they going to leave me alone? Are they going to abandon me? But instead, he doesn't worry about those things, at least not from what we see in Scripture. Instead, what he does is, instead of being kind of like you and I are, we're kind of reactive in our relationships. But instead of being that way, Jesus is proactive. He takes the first of it. If you remember, Jesus came to show us how we were supposed to live to begin with. How to connect with our Creator, how to connect with God, and how to connect with each other. And so Jesus says, here's how you do it. You want to be good friends? Don't worry about what they're going to do to you in response. But just do what you know you have to do. Be proactive. And so this is what happens. We look in the Gospel of John. And John he refers to himself as the disciple Jesus loved. He was one of Jesus' closest friends. And this is what he writes down about that night. So he, being Jesus, got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel. And drying them with the towel he had around him. Now, we read that today and we're like, that is weird, because how weird would it be if you just got up in your friend group right now, if I brought out a bowl of water and a towel and then said, one of you be Jesus. And I just have one of you get up and start, taking your friend's shoes off and washing their feet. That'd be super weird, right? So let me kind of break this down to you why he was doing this. Because if you understand, in that culture, and 2,000 years ago, they didn't have nice paved sidewalks like we do here in Franklin. The paths that go all around town, and it's super nice. I like to ride my bike on. They didn't have that. They had dirt roads. And they didn't have automobiles. They didn't have cars. And they had donkeys and camels and horses. And those things poop what they eat, right? Just like all things, but they don't have a toilet. Their toilet is the road. And so people didn't have shoes back then. They had sandals. And not closed-toed sandals, like open sandals to all the elements in the road. And so it was the lowest servant's job in the household to wash people's feet. And what Jesus does is he takes off his outer robe and he puts on a towel and he gets the water and he takes the job of the lowest servant. In fact, when he gets to Peter's like, no, you cannot wash my feet because you're God, and I'm just, and Jesus says, no, you are my friend, and I'm going to wash your feet. And he gives them the example. He's proactive. He serves them. He takes on the dirtiest job just as an act of love to show them, this is what you do for your friends is you do what you do for the people you love. Maybe today it's not literally washing each other's feet, but what are you willing to do for the sake of your friends? Or do you just expect them to make your friendship happy? It's when we look at friendship through the lens of the way Jesus treated those closest to him, we get a very different picture than what you and I tend to think of when we think of our relationships. Again, he was not reactive, he was proactive, and he took the first step. He took the first step to show them what it was like to live in true friendship. In fact, later in the Gospel of Luke, actually, this would have been earlier in Jesus' ministry, Jesus is talking to people, and he's not talking about this in reference to friends, but it applies to the idea of friends. And he says in the Gospel of Luke, he says, to do to others as you would like them to do to you. Now, most of you probably heard that before if you've been to church for like 2 seconds before. Do to others what you would like them to do to you. Right? Treat your neighbor as yourself. And that's a really good idea, right? What would it look like if you just treated everybody the way that you wanted to be treated? And I think if we put those verses together, it re-emphasizes that, in order for friendships to be real and to be helpful, we have to be proactive and take the first step in serving the people around us. And in being the friend when we don't want to. And being available to them when we're tired and when we have better things to do. Including people who maybe are often left out. Jesus took the first step. And we need to treat other people the way that we want to be treated. And what Jesus shows us when it comes to friendship is that we have to be proactive. We have to be willing to take the first step. Because how often do you and I look around at our friends, and sometimes if we're left out of the group text, we think, you know what, I'm going to leave them out of the next group text. Like, if they had a snide comment to make to you under their breath as they walk by, or they said something bad about you behind your back and it got back to you, that doesn't happen anymore, does it? In high school? No. Okay, good. But when that does happen, your immediate reaction is not to just serve that person, right? Your reaction is that. It's a reaction. It's to be ugly back to that person. You want them to feel how they made you feel. And somehow we think we're justified in doing so. But that's not the way that Jesus treated us. In fact, later that night, when Jesus was arrested, his disciples did flee. They abandoned him. The people that he had spent the last 3.5 years around, the people that he had fed out of miraculous ways, that he had saved from storms, that he healed people in front of them, those people that had been around him for 3.5 years left him in his hour of need. They got scared, and they abandoned him. Jesus could have reacted in a number of different ways. But later on the beach, we see Jesus interacting with Peter after Peter himself denied Jesus 3 times. The scare of a little girl who's saying, hey, I know you, you're one of his disciples. And he says, no, he curses at her and runs away like a little girl. And Jesus could have held that over him. He could have come back on that beach after he rose from the dead and been around all his disciples, and cooking them breakfast, and he could have been, Peter, not you though. But he didn't. He accepted him back, and in fact, he gave him more responsibility. Peter, started the church. He gave the very first sermon after Jesus went back up into heaven, and 3,000 people became Christians after that. God uses us even in the midst of our mistakes, and we should have that same kind of grace for the people who are in our friend group. Even people who aren't, but especially those that we want to be friends with. Think about what Jesus said in today's terms, right? If you want to treat other people the way you want to be treated, what does that look like to text others the way you want to be texted? Sometimes we hide behind a screen and say things digitally that we would never say in person, face to face. What if we invited others as we would like to be invited? What if we talked to others the way we wanted to be talked to or about? What if we posted about others the way we would want to be posted about? When we put it in today's terms, it makes it really difficult to kind of justify our reaction to negative friend experiences. In other words, if I were to boil this down to one sentence, I would say, be the friend that you want to have. What would it look like for you to take that first step? And being the friend that you want to have. Maybe your friends aren't asking you to hang out, and maybe you should just ask them first. Maybe instead of waiting for somebody else in the group to start the group text, why don't you? Maybe if someone left you out of a group hang, don't retaliate if they're a fit. Talk to them face to face. Express how that made you feel. And then include everybody next time. If you and your best friends haven't had a night of junk food and video games in a while, then volunteer your house for the next weekend. Just be willing to do something. Take the first step. And let me tell you, just like in Jesus' case, it does not always pan out. Sometimes you can, in big and small ways, you can make that first move to create the kind of friendships that you want. And sometimes it'll be great, and sometimes it will not. Sometimes people will still treat you horribly. Sometimes people still will not return the gesture of friendship back to you. But I can promise you this, that you will have no regrets. You won't regret treating other people the way that you would have wanted to be treated. Because they may still ultimately reject you. There's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing you can do about that. But you can keep being the friend that you'd like to have. And I can tell you, people who are nice to other people who treat other people the way they want to be treated, they generally end up with more friends. And it's a long con. It's not the quick game. It takes time. It takes investing in those people over time in order for that difference to be made. And after a while, people catch on because people are tired of negativity, especially today. We see too much of it on our phones. We see too much of it in the world around us. We see it too much in our schools. People are attracted to positivity, and people run from negativity. So be a positive person. Be the friend that you would want to have. So learn also how to be a friend to you. Be a friend to yourself. Because as silly as that might sound, a lot of times we treat the people around us the way that we treat ourselves. If we have low patience with ourselves and our own shortcomings, and we don't have grace for ourselves, and we think that we're not worth anything, and we have a hard time forgiving ourselves, we have a hard time, loving ourselves, we're not going to be very good at loving the people around us. We're not going to have patience with other people. We're not going to be very forgiving to other people. So be a friend to yourself. Be the kind of friend that you want to have, and be a good friend to yourself. I want you guys to just finish this time out with your groups. There's a couple more questions for you, but there's also this worksheet. So what you're going to do, there's instructions on that worksheet, and as you go through these questions, you're also going to fill this out. And it's hopefully going to help you kind of figure out an action step that you can take when it comes to this, because it's really easy to talk about it like all up in the cloud, and it'd be abstract and it'd be hypothetical. But if we bring it down to reality and actually write some things out, what this actually might look like for you, I think it'll help give you a little bit more direction when it comes to how you actually deal with your real friendships. I'll hand it over to your groups, and then group leaders, when you guys are done with this, feel free to pray with your group, and then you can be dismissed from that. Try not to distract other people if you get finished first. Or maybe just choose to hang out until everybody else is done. And then that's all we got for you guys. We're so thankful that you guys came. Hopefully this is helpful and beneficial to you guys, and hopefully this again opens the door of opportunity for you guys to have real friendships with the people who hopefully are on the same life mission as you, who want to serve Jesus, who want to follow Jesus more closely, and hopefully this just creates an opportunity for you guys to do that in a safe environment. So let me guys finish up this time with your small group, and then we'll be done.
Hey, hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you're subscribed so you're notified when we upload future videos. Have a great day.